reported no infections in the young women and girls who received these injections. The study included about 5,000 women in South Africa and Uganda. The findings were published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Joining us now, Dr. Amish Adalja. He's an infectious disease specialist and a senior scholar at the Johns Hopkins University Center for Health Security. Thank you for being with us. So, of course, there were more than 1 million new HIV infections globally just last year. Can you break down for us what this treatment could mean for those at high risk of contracting the virus, and just generally, how can we prevent HIV?
This treatment is really game-changing, and what it really involves is what's called pre-exposure prophylaxis, which means you give this to people who are not infected, and it makes them basically impervious to infection while that drug is active in their body. So while it's not an HIV vaccine, it is something that can really be instrumental in decreasing the number of cases. And with HIV prevention, it's all about people getting tested, people practicing safe sexual practices, people who are infected getting on antiretroviral therapy, and using tools like this one and other tools of pre-exposure prophylaxis to get cases down.
So how much would these injections cost, do we know? And is there any plan to try to bring that cost as low as possible?
So right now, it is fairly costly. I think it's going to be different depending upon which country that this is happening in. And what we will find eventually is that this will be seen as a cost-effective measure. And when you think about how expensive it is to treat a case of HIV where people are on medications for life, this cost will really pale in comparison and will likely be adjusted based on countries' ability to pay and what's going on in each individual's country's economic plans.
Just a note, we were showing the price tag right now, $42,000 a year.
Right. So what I would do is think about that in terms of how much that cost is compared to what it is to take care of HIV, the complications of HIV. And I think you'll likely see some juxtaposition and changing of that price over time as people understand the cost effectiveness of preventing HIV cases.
And doctor, while we have you to that end, we wanted to ask you about a new development. Just last week, we reported of a German man possibly cured of HIV after a stem cell transplant for leukemia. Tell us more about this. How was he treated?
So this is an individual who had leukemia and needed a bone marrow transplant and got a bone marrow transplant with someone who has one of the mutations that we know, or at least one of the two mutations that are needed to make someone impervious to HIV. So in the past, we've had cures with people who've gotten bone marrow transplants with bone marrow that is resistant to HIV. This person's was kind of half resistant to HIV, and it ended up making the virus having a very hard time surviving post-bone marrow. This isn't something that's for everybody, but it is proof of concept that these types of cures are possible. And this is around the 7th or so person that this has happened to. And what's notable is this person didn't have bone marrow from somebody that had both copies of that gene mutated. Only one copy was mutated.
Dr. Amish Adalja, great to have you with us. Thank you.
We are